So why do landlords want to work with tenants directly with no broker?
Landlords want to work with tenants with no broker for several reasons. Number one, they know for a fact that that tenant does not have the market intelligence they need to achieve the most favorable terms possible. They know that the tenant doesn't have the time that it takes or the savvy to go to market, to figure out all their options, to negotiate with multiple other landlords simultaneously before they approach that landlord. And when a landlord sees a tenant who's unrepresented, they can almost guarantee that they're going to make tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars more in their favor than if that tenant had professional representation. And in this scenario, someone who exclusively represents healthcare professionals.
Yeah, Ken, when you're dealing with large companies like a Chipotle or Starbucks, even though the spaces that they occupy are roughly the same amount of space that a lot of healthcare providers are going to occupy, these guys have professional brokers negotiating for them all over the country. They never step into a negotiation without that help. And a landlord has that help on their side, even if a healthcare provider thinks that that landlord is talking directly to them, which they may be talking to them, but that landlord has a broker on the backside who is telling them what the market looks like, what concessions are at the point, whether he thinks that tenant's going to stay or go, how quickly he can get somebody else in the space, all these things that is giving a landlord a market advantage over that tenant.
The landlord knows that a tenant, especially a healthcare provider, doesn't have the time, energy, market intelligence to understand the market. They don't have the ability to go out there and negotiate with 4 or 5 other landlords simultaneously to look at options to lease versus purchase, to look at options of office versus retail. When a healthcare provider negotiates directly with the landlord, it's communicating that that healthcare provider has no other options, isn't willing to move, doesn't want to move. If they did, or if they were actually considering it, they'd have a market expert representing them who's handling the process for them.
Well, and honestly, I think that's why landlords, listing agents, their favorite call is when a tenant is calling them directly saying, hey, I'm sitting outside of your space. I like this center. Do you have opportunities here? Can I come in? They love that call because they know they're dealing with somebody directly who doesn't have that market knowledge. They're likely going to be giving away way too much on that initial phone call. One thing I used to always say is do not call the listing agent yourself, because everything you say on that call can and will be used against you in that negotiation.
That's right.
You're going to give away all your posture. You're not going to have any leverage, and they hold all the cards at that point.
Yeah, most healthcare providers don't realize that when you make that phone call, you have just started the negotiation.
Yep.
And what you're communicating is that you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the market. You're not represented. You're not probably looking at the market from a very savvy approach with a strategic posture. When you show up to a property and you start asking questions, what are they marketing this at? What are you guys willing to do? All of those questions communicate that you don't know what you're doing. Charles Schwab's not showing up to a property just asking random questions. Lockheed Martin's not showing up to a property asking random questions. Chipotle, Starbucks, whether it's a retailer or an office user, if it is a professional company, they have a team of agents or in-house professionals that all they do is negotiate professionally for a living, and they're going to guarantee that their client or themselves get the best possible terms.
Well, and we have stories all across the country from clients who have said, hey, can you take a look at this lease? I'm negotiating it myself. My CPA told me I should call you. Can you take a look and do a free lease evaluation? It's something we do. So we take a look at it and we're like, hey, we actually just negotiated in this building 3, 4, 5 months ago. Do you know Dr. So-and-so? We put him up there. And we look at the lease side by side, and in many cases, it can be 6 figures or more. There's one in Alabama we were just talking about the other day, $400,000 difference between the lease we negotiated with the proper posture and strategy and the lease that they tried to take a DIY approach.
A lot of healthcare providers incorrectly believe that if they handle the real estate themselves, that they're going to save money. They have a mentality similar to a forced sale by owner. Well, if I don't use an agent or a broker, then I'm going to save a portion of the commission. The reason that's incorrect is because the healthcare provider as a tenant is not determining the commissions. Yeah. The landlord determines the commissions. The landlord decides how much is going to get paid on each transaction. And when a healthcare provider goes into a transaction unrepresented, they don't save any money. The listing agent gets a double commission, or the landlord pockets that money. Mm-hmm. Landlords love talking to healthcare providers directly. They'll even tell them things like, we'd love to give you a better deal if you don't have an agent. Why would they say that? Yeah. They're saying it because they're going to overcharge that healthcare provider by tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to short them on the concessions by several months during the build-out period, during the free rent period. They're going to give them tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars less in the tenant improvement allowance. That healthcare provider is going to literally leave $100,000, $200,000 on the table. Meanwhile, the listing agent for the landlord gets a double commission, or the landlord pockets that money. So not only does the healthcare provider lose a considerable amount of money, they waste 30, 40, 50 hours of their valuable time. And the insult to injury is the fact that they could have had representation for free and saved $200,000.
DIY is the most dangerous thing that a healthcare provider can do when it comes to real estate. Now, if they want to, try to DIY their own little project at their house, and be their own contractor, that's their own deal. They can do that. But when you're talking about real estate, the repercussions on a practice, because of the fact that it is the practice's second or third highest expense, it can last for years to come.
Well, you only get one crack at this thing every 5 to 7 or 10 years. You make a mistake with your real estate, you don't get to try again next month. If you overpay for merchandise or sundries, sure, you can purchase from someone new, you can purchase in bulk a month later, you get another shot at that thing. When it comes to commercial real estate, you get one crack at this thing every 5, 7, or 10 years. You make a mistake with your healthcare real estate, it's gonna cost you tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in actual payments that you are going to cut.